good evening to you. Mid-conversation with the two Kevins in the studio this evening. Thanks for joining us. One of them makes a debut. The other one's made a fair number of appearances, and it's always a delight to welcome Kevin Gage back to the studio, and I know he finds it a delight to talk about Sheffield United at the moment, as all of us who go to Bramall Lane absolutely do. They've made a cracking start to the Premier League season. Was there any doubt? I'm not so sure there was any real measurable doubt in the media. I think those who've watched the Blades regularly are not surprised. I shan't ask you about the technical aspects of football, Mr. Kevin Cookson, but it's a delight to welcome you here to talk about things off the field, of which there have been many during the summer at Bramall Lane. Lots of things that people, the fans that go, won't have seen, but the media certainly have. And this explosion, and you're the head of media, of course, I'm sure people have seen that on screen already with the caption, but an explosion of interest in the Blades.
Without a doubt, it started. I think it started after that Ipswich game, and then obviously the Leeds game that followed after against Aston Villa. In that first week, when our promotion was confirmed, I think we did something like 45, 50 interviews with Chris, with local, national and international media, and it's just been relentless since then. Obviously a lot of interest has been in Chris and Billy, but we've tried to spread that around a little bit of the squad and a little bit of the backroom team as well. So it's my job to try and manage the media requests that we get and make sure Chris is not overly inundated, although he has been, and the same with Billy and obviously one or two more.
Has there been any effect on your workload?
Just a bit. Just a bit, yeah. I spoke to the lads. We went on pre-season to Portugal, and I'd been made aware from about March time I'd started doing my own work. I know one or two press officers in the Premier League, and I'd spoken to the Premier League as well, so I'd done a little bit of own work. In Portugal on pre-season, I put a presentation together for the players, and basically what I was telling them is I was doubling, if not trebling, their media commitments. And it was not as if I was going to them and asking them if they were doing stuff at that point. With the Premier League, they demand it. There's a lot of TV companies, broadcasters, etc., who put in a lot of money to the Premier League, and it's that sort of money that comes into the club. It's from the media side that it's coming into the club, so they want a little bit for their buck, really, and that includes interviews, etc., with the players. So doubling, trebling what they're doing through the season. I've had Jack O'Connell today doing about 2 hours of stuff, as you well know, Al, because you was involved in it. So we're more or less doing, well, today we've done double what we were doing at this time last year.
And I can confirm it is time consuming to do these various television and radio commitments. Kevin Gage, there's so much more to it, isn't there? Life in the Premier League than what happens on the field, which is really what you and I principally focus on, and like what we see, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing to listen to Kev there. I've just, my mind was wandering back then to, to my days, because I played in the first Premiership season of Sheffield United, 92-93. And I don't remember all this hullabaloo, I must be honest.
No.
There was a little bit of interest in it, but I remember Brad's being sent down to London for a photo shoot. But there wasn't anything like the coverage, and that's the only word I can describe is the hoo-ha and hullabaloo that we get at the moment.
There was nothing like the demands on you and the other players. Pretty much, I was there covering it, and I seem to recall, despite back-to-back promotions, it just carried on as it was.
Well, I was at United. I was at United in 2006-07 when we were at the Premier League, and that's nothing like it is today. Absolutely nothing. Oh. It's completely different with the. I think you've used the word quite a bit, explosion, and that's exactly what it is. And we're talking local, national, international. It's coming. I expect something coming from the moon soon, because it's just it's just relentless day in, day out, with broadcasters, radios, newspapers, websites.
I suppose it's welcome in a sense. It means you've really achieved, and you're where you want to be.
It is. I've then got to judge what's best for the club, really, and what's best for the players to maximise this coverage that's been offered to us.
We'll go into sort of what you've done behind the scenes and your particular role in a bit more depth. But Gage, you and I were talking just before we came on air about that clip from a newspaper, national paper in Italy this week, with big headlines on the overlapping centre backs.
Yeah, the overlapping centre backy.
Yeah.
It's quite incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, again, we were talking beforehand, and people are cottoning on to our system of play, which is only one facet of our system of play, by the way. We've got lots of other strings to our bow, but yeah, that is an excellent example of just how far the tentacles of the Premier League and the coverage on Sheffield United are reaching. We're getting write-ups in Italian sports papers about this newfangled system that we're playing, that nobody's yet to work out, by the way. So.
But it's old hat around here, isn't it? We've been, I suppose we've been talking to nobody because nobody seems to have noticed. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? The disenfranchisement, is that the right word, of clubs outside the Premier League who don't count as much and people don't take as much. If it's not happening in the Premier League, it's not happening. There is that feeling, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that, I think. Yeah.
But this has been happening, and to you, you must bring a wry smile to your face, Kevin, when people want to do pieces about the tactical innovation.
Oh, of course, yeah. The fifth and sixth and seventh time that it's happening, and then you get a little bit bored of it, and I think the players are getting a little bit bored of it. But we're telling this to a different market, we're telling this to a different audience all the time. So sometimes you've just got to understand that people may have not watched Sheffield Live or read the Sheffield Star or
really?
listen to BBC Radio Sheffield.
Yeah.
But we're getting the message out, and like Kev says, I don't want to go on to what's happening on the pitch all the time, but people know that we play with overlapping centre halves, and Jack and Bash are going around the wing backs, etc. And then it's still up to other teams to try and stop it.
Yeah. Coincidentally, Kevin Gage, you and I both wrote pieces this week saying there wouldn't be any point to having overlapping centre backs if you couldn't defend well as well. Yeah. And the two balances, the defensive record, League One and in the Championship, was absolutely excellent. Only one goal conceded and two in the Premier League.
Chris will be absolutely delighted about how strong and solid we've looked in the first two games. And people will say, oh yeah, but it's only Bournemouth, it's only Palace. You know, Palace came with a big reputation to Bramall Lane, and we completely snuffed them out. And I watched the game back as soon as I got in, and it was highly impressive. You know, the way we chased them down and harried them and pressed them and forced them into areas. And in the end, I mean, you mentioned the columns we write. I highlighted the fact that Palace were just hitting long, high, hopeful balls into our penalty area. Yeah. And our three centre-halves will have them all day. Thank you very much. Long may it continue.
Well, I think they created less than most Championship visitors last season in terms of shots at goal. You agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, very lacklustre from Paris. But did we contribute to that? I'd like to think, it was our defensive, and not defensive display, but all-round solidity as a team that contributed to Palace just running out of ideas completely.
As the professional, maybe what are your observations on what happens when O'Connell and Basham go? Because they're not necessarily both going forward together, but there are occasions when they do.
I've got absolutely no idea how it works, to be honest. Right, it's magic. It's a complete mystery to me.
That's a great admission. I mean, there was you played right back, you also played midfield, and about attacking right back.
I must admit, I mean, we're talking about it. We're talking over 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when it was first cottoned on to what was happening. And I didn't realise the complexity of it, because you see the centre halves shooting forward and overlapping the wing backs. You think, well, what's going on here, But you don't realise the players covering back round, because your focus is on, let's say, Jack O'Connell, arms pumping and charging down the wing, and you don't see not Baldock especially, but Basham coming round and Norwood filling in and somebody else filling in behind in case it all breaks down. Now, more often than not in the League One, and also, of course, moving into the successful Championship seasons, it didn't break down, and we got something across or a chance from the end of it, so we weren't getting counter-attacked. But I think it's going to be very important that they do keep their discipline. If somebody's charging down the left, then they keep the discipline on the right and in the centre.
And they don't leave.
So we're not leaving ourselves open to the counter attack.
And not leaving John Egan isolated.
Yeah.
Having said that, he's doing a monumental job, surely, at this level as well now. Only 2 games, but that looks a play. I think there's going to be some more internationals there. There's a few already. What do you think?
I totally agree with you, and I'm going to throw in O'Connell. I think O'Connell will be in England squad within 3 or 4 months. A comfortable defender, a comfortable on the ball. He's shown his attacking prowess. He won't need to overlap the England left back or left winger, but there's not many good left-footed centre halves who can defend and pass the ball out in this country. So, I don't know, if somebody likes to tell me another one, then fair play. But I think he's easily good enough to get in that England squad and England team easily.
Good shout. I did raise the issue with him today, and he straight battered it as you would expect.
Because he's been coached by Kevin Cookson, that's why.
Yeah, but I mean, Kevin, how many countries have you received emails and texts from? Do you reckon since Blade's got in the Premier?
We're definitely looking upwards of 20, 30. The Premier League goes to every country but 5, I think. Is what they market. At the game against Crystal Palace last week, we had camera crews from Croatia, France and Australia, as well as there's a company called PLP, Premier League Productions, who what they do is they do all the filming for everybody, and they distribute that across the world. So you can argue that our pictures are going across the world as well. Last week or the week before, we had NBC in with us for a full day. So obviously they're a big American channel. They spent time with Chris and Billy and Phil Jagielka, and yeah, we're just getting inquiries from every country.
You can't fulfil every request, though.
No, we can't. We're trying to concentrate on rights holders at the moment. We're also trying to look after the local guys like yourself and the Star of BBC Radio Sheffield, who has covered us in those dark days in League One. So we don't want to forget his roots either.
No, that's good to hear, because you do hear of no names, no pack drill of clubs that suddenly get a bit above themselves when they get to the Premier League. Perhaps it's short-sighted, because who knows how long they're going to be there. And they enjoy that little bit, and then suddenly they need you again, almost, When
we've got a manager like we have, that's not going to be the case, is it? And you've seen how I operate as well, so yeah. I don't think we're ever going to get above ourselves.
No, I'll still ring you up and shout at you, stuff like that.
No problem.
So, yeah. But just by the way, it's not entirely an overloaded Sheffield United sofa this evening. I used the word overloaded, perhaps riskily, after the stories you may have read this week about Gary Lineker being under investigation for having a joke about the bald pates of Alan Shearer and in the studio, and politically incorrect remarks about baldies and that. And I can't say anything like we had to order a new sofa this evening, can I, for you two?
No? You ain't got to worry about political correctness with us.
Two new sofas. There's actually quite a big space between you. In the second half, by the way, Sheffield Wednesday will be represented. We've got an exclusive preview of the new relaunched fanzine, War of the Monster Truck, which is always very amusing, I find, and we've got some covers from there, about 5 illustrations, which we've had a bit of a giggle over pre-programme here, and Steve Wormsley, who's one of the editors, will be here to talk us through them, and we'll show them on screen in part 2. But just talk us through, £5 million is the figure I've seen for behind-the-scenes Premier League protocol improvements. Is that sort of right, during the summer? Yeah,
that's about right. There's been a lot of improvements in a lot of areas. Commercial being one, and the hospitality suites. Floodlights is a second one. We've also had to put in quite a lot of hard wiring for the broadcasters. But there's been, I think the most money has been spent in the media area, so a lot's been on my shoulders, if you like. We have a brand new press box, as you'll have seen. We've improved our gantry for the broadcasters. We've also got a brand new media lounge as well, which can accommodate up to about 100 people. It's all bright and sparkling. Everything's spot on there. And downstairs we had one media interview room. We was told in April that we had to make that into 5 and a mix zone. So that was quite challenging, but with the help of with our project manager, etc., and people at Bramall Lane, they've done a cracking job, and everything's perfect. The Premier League are delighted with our facilities, and on first sight against Crystal Palace last week, the journalists are as well.
Yes, I was there. Everything very impressive behind the scenes, including the catering.
Yes, we've improved that as well.
Yeah, slightly up on the sausage rolls and the and the pies, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you miss out.
I haven't experienced it yet. I'm waiting to sample it.
You're over the other side, aren't
I'm
you?
over the other side, yeah.
Doing some hospitality work.
But James Shield was marvelling about the new coffee machine. So.
Yeah, this morning. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
saw that. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it really is a different world, the Premier League, and I guess you know, despite all the hard work, having been at the club for so long, you must be really relishing and enjoying it.
You can't not, can you?
And how long have you been there?
I've been there 21 years now. 21
Right.
years. So I came in to assist Andy Pack with the programme, and obviously things have materialised since then. You've just had to grow with the role, really. Social media really wasn't about then. Websites,
grown.
Definitely have, man and boy. Yeah, so websites were just kicking off at that point as well, and there was no social media. You just had to grow with it, really.
Social media is a bit of a sticky topic at the moment for all of football, isn't it, really?
Just a bit, yeah.
I think we're all disgusted, and yet not surprised, unfortunately, by some elements of it and the kind of abuse and the racist abuse that's handed out. I mean, any thoughts on how it can be stopped, either of you, or tempered, or what should happen?
Forgive me for being a little bit cynical, but I don't think it's not as massive a problem as people are making out. I mean, at the end of the day, players don't have to be on Twitter and
This is true.
Social media. You don't have to read all the messages. You can ignore them, as we've all found in the past. You've done it, Alan. I've done it. There's always been abuse, whether it be racial, or whether it be heightist or fattist or anythingist. It's the same. It's been the same for years and years and years. Everybody's got an outlet now, though. And everybody jumps on it all the time.
It's very difficult to say to players, don't go on it, though, isn't it? Because it's a peer pressure thing. They're all on it. They've all got profiles on it. Nearly all on it, aren't they?
Yeah,
most.
There is a lot on it, and obviously you worry about it a little bit when you see posts coming up from players, etc. A lot of them seem to be a little bit more private now than they are on some of the social media channels, but it's a dangerous game. If I had my way, would the players be on it? Probably not, but it's not part of the contract, is it?
No, and you can't actually. I think it's an infringement of civil liberties or something to actually say to somebody, no, you can't communicate on there. It can't be done. I don't know of any manager that's actually, football manager or club, that's actually banned players from being on, do you?
Like you say, they probably can't, but I think a lot of managers would probably prefer that their players not to be on it. Chris is not on it.
No, well, that speaks volumes, doesn't it? He did confide that he follows about 3 or 4 people, and I've got a feeling you might be one of them. Another one might be. It doesn't follow, but gets told.
Yeah, there's ways and means of finding out. There's ways and means of finding things out, even if you're not on there.
I mean, Kevin, you said the players don't have to read the responses. That is one thing they could do, but they get told about it if they don't. So it's inescapable, isn't it?
I can't really comment for some of the, even some of the United players have got tens of thousands of Twitter followers. I'm not on Instagram, so I can't comment on that. I don't know about that. But you get your notifications, don't you? If you've got 200 notifications, mentions or whatever, you're not going to read every one of them, surely.
No.
Well,
if you can ignore them, they're not going to be very complimentary.
Exactly. You haven't got time to read them all. So, I don't actually see the need for players to be on Twitter. And you're quite right. If I was going to be on it and I had 100,000 followers or something, and I was going to get in trouble, then my accounts would be protected, and I'd make sure I was only talking to a few people and couldn't see it.
It's surprising how many managers are on it, mind you. There's quite a lot. Lee Johnson, Gary Monk, to name. There's a lot. I think you could come up with 10 or 12 who are on it. Right, that completes part 1. Do stick around for part 2. You've got a bit of rivalry with Wednesday. You might have a laugh at them. They might have a laugh at you in part 2. But that's all part of football, folks. Rejoin us in 5. See you then.